Thanks again for rejoining us on Nigerian Decide Live Studio of Independent Television and Radio. We did promise that we'll continue our conversation today as we await the results from the National Coalition Center in Abuja, particularly for the presidential election. So far, so good. Yesterday, the National Coalition Center brought forth the results of Ekiti State, in which the APC won with over 200,000 votes. PDP came second with over 89,000 votes. And then, of course, Labour Party came third with over 11,000 votes. But if you look at the total number of votes cast, interface it with the number of registered voters in that state, the margin is huge. It's huge. And that's continued to be a major source of concern for everyone, that on an election day, in an election year, the level of participation is usually quite different from the number of people that are registered. But that's something we'll look at in the course of the program. But let's quickly welcome our panelists for our first session of the program today. Dr. Stella Omonigo is head of the Department of Languages at the University of Benin, an associate professor. Thank you so much for coming out on the program.
Thank you so much.
I'm not really following protocol now, otherwise I should have started with the former acting vice chancellor of Ambrose Ali University, AAU, Professor Benson Osadolo. Prof, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much. Please let me quickly say something.
Yes.
Dr. Omonigo, you called, is now a full professor
wow.
of the University of Benin.
Prof, congratulations.
Full professor.
We'll watch him after this program now. Big
so
time.
She should be addressed as such.
We'll watch it after this program.
That's
now.
fine. That's okay.
All right, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we'll make that correction immediately. Professor Stella Omonigo, it's a delight to have you here on the program.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
We also have with us in the studio Reverend Olu Martins, is the senior pastor, Hill City International Center. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Maybe I should join Prof. You follow gender protocol. Ladies first, they say.
Thank you. Olu Martins, Executive Director, Canvassers for Democracy and Rule of Law. Thank you once again, gentlemen and lady. Okay, Saturday's election is come and gone. And just to add that, Professor Stella Omonigo was the returning officer in the just concluded election for Igwebe Local Government Council. And so she will also be sharing with us our experiences in the conduct of the election, particularly some of the things that are coming forth as far as the election is concerned. But let me start from Reverend Olu Martins. Yeah, Saturday's election is come and gone. There were logistical challenges. There were some misgivings here and there. But by and large, the election went peacefully. We had a reasonable turnout of people participating in the election. We have massive turnout of people in some polling units participating in this election. Let's build it up from there.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I should first of all, because now we're almost working in dual capacity. We're referring to Edo State, and then we're talking about how it took place in the national. I think that when you say peacefully, I think it's important to say they were relatively peaceful.
Okay.
All right, because we had instances of ballot snatching at several state level and even at Edo State. But we must also thank Nigerians for their resolve to be part of the electoral process. A couple of persons came from outside the shores of this country. A large number of them who didn't come to vote, but to also mobilize people to be part of that electoral process. You recall that on Saturday it rained, and in spite of the rains, like they say in NYSC, under the sun and in the rain, with dedication and selflessness, Nigerians remained, under the rain. So that's to tell you that Nigerians are interested not just in the political process, but also in governance, because a lot of time people are involved in the political process, but when the political space is created, they take their leave and don't participate, in governance. But people waited in this particular instance to cast their votes to ensure that the votes were counted and that the votes were, transmitted. Even when we had issues with transmission, the collaboration between political parties, especially in Edo State, and the level of understanding and conviviality is also, to be commended. But I think that the heroes of, 2023 elections are the young people. They are the heroes. You can't take it, away from them. They still constituted more than 60% of those people who came, to vote. They served. I must mention that for some reason, security presence was a bit low in these, elections, at least in the areas that I covered. There are places that, except for the officers that were the polling, booths who were not bearing arms, the usual security presence where you see security
checkpoints.
Yeah. No, the checkpoints were there by the military, many of them bearing white, armbands. But you see the mobile police guys who moved up and down, blowing sign and ensure that there wasn't crisis in certain flashpoints, were altogether absent in these, elections. Why that is so, I would leave the security, to answer to that. But, by and large, we will commend, Nigerians for coming out. The turnout was, massive, at least in the areas, that I went to. And then the voting process, materials arrived late. I'm a little bit worried about the organizational preparedness of INEC, because INEC had a whole lot of time to prepare for these elections. There were places where materials didn't arrive till 9:30, till 10. And there were places where voting went on till 7 o'clock. So you will say that for an election that we have been, preparing for, where you were supposed to move materials to rack centers, and then from those rack centers were contiguous. They were close to the polling units. So why the materials didn't get to many of the polling units on time leaves a little to be desired as to the preparedness and competency, of INEC. I think 90%, if we have challenges in this election, 90% should be at the table of INEC. INEC has more answers, because even communication, there was a problem with communication, all right? Because even when materials were delaying, nobody could tell us why materials were delaying and when materials will come. Even when people couldn't transmit results, nobody could tell us. I saw that there was some level of challenge within the, the officers, the INEC office, the ad hoc staff that were on the field, and then with INEC that they were communicating with. We couldn't get, that communication, but by and large, hopefully life can return
to
normal now that the elections are, at least the first phase of it have gone. And
partially,
yes,
because we are waiting results.
Yeah, we are waiting results. I know the election, the voting
part of it.
Yeah, what we are waiting for now as a result. But at least what needs to be done on the field in this first phase of the presidential and national assembly elections are gone. Next, in a fortnight, we'll be going back to the trenches to attempt to vote our gubernatorial and House of Assembly, elections. It's too early to, to benchmark or to give a pass mark. By the time we do after results have been announced, we'll do a proper post-mortem and bring all the facts together. We'll be able to say whether or not the security agencies passed, whether INEC passed, and whether the input of the political parties, passed. But for now, there are answers between the security agencies, especially the police, and INEC that needs to be provided for the Nigerian people.
All right, Prof, let me come to you. There were cases of skirmishes in this election, cases of ballot box snatching, cases of disruption of the conduct of election. I mean, in Ward 4, in Oredo, for example, that report came out very, very strongly. In fact, there's a report that INEC has cancelled election results in 4 polling units over violence, ballot box snatching, and over voting in Kwara State. The areas affected at Saragi in Edu local government, Kiaro local government for senatorial poll, while in Asa local government, results were cancelled for both presidential and senatorial election. Even in Abuja, from some of our correspondents that called in yesterday, also revealed that this same incident of ballot box snatching, distortion of election results, took place in Lagos. What's your assessment of these, against the background that we're told that the BVAS machine was designed to be able to ensure that all of these things that are synonymous with our elections in the past do not occur, or even if they do occur, they will not in any way affect the election results or outcome, as it were?
Well, let me begin by saying that the issue related to ballot snatching, violence, or other matters, in quotes, that has to do with fraud. There are matters that we can discuss directly under electoral offenses. And I'm sure lawyers will agree that there's already a bill, I think it's Electoral Offenses Bill 2023, which has not yet been passed into law. There, all of these issues, particularly as it relates to offenders, have been discussed, and the processes involved in prosecution of those involved in all of these cases. We cannot say, for example, that there were problems in Oredu Ward 4, the results have been suspended or cancelled, and the offenders are not prosecuted. It doesn't make sense. You go to Kwara State, you identified 4 flashpoints, and because of these problems, you have cancelled the results. Those involved in the offenses, what exactly is government planning or INEC planning or the police planning to do with them? So that leads us to a number of critical questions to ask. How do we assess the professional conduct of security agencies during the election? Professional conduct is very important. 2, how do we also begin to assess INEC's preparedness and organization of the election? Because part of INEC's preparations for the election has to do with the conviction that BVAS will solve a number of electoral malpractices that have been connected with the conduct of elections in the past years in Nigeria. And so the very first time BVAS was introduced in Nigerian election was Isoko South or North rerun.
Okay.
And from there, I think it moved to Anambra, where it was also used. And this is the first time that BVAS has moved to the national stage, where not only 1, but 36 states, including Abuja, you know, the Federal Capital Territory, they were now involved in the use of BVAS. Now, BVAS is actually a biometric technology. Now, the essence of BVAS, first, that is the Bermuda Voter Accreditation System. The essence is to ensure that those they have registered as voters who have PVCs, the permanent voters cards, they are those that are captured in BVAS. And the records so stated, they are the ones that will reflect even in participation, counting, and release of the results. Where otherwise you find any discrepancy, even if it is just 1 margin, then something has gone wrong with that process. That is the thinking of those who suggested that BVAS be introduced. Unfortunately, from the report you have given and from what I have also read, you realize that most of these BVAS, whatever, they didn't function the way they ought to function. In some cases, to read the PVC was a problem. They tried to capture the image or faces of the voters. In some cases, it worked. In some other cases, it didn't work. Logistically, in some areas, such materials even arrived very late. And so you begin to ask questions. To what extent did INEC make preparations for all of these elections that held on Saturday? Now, when you look at that in relation to the conduct of the electorate and the principal actors, that is the candidates and their political parties, you will see some kind of alignment where some of those who went to vote have made up their mind on what to do. The candidates or the parties that represent their interests, some had their own agents, or in quote now, some persons, I don't want to use the word talks, some persons who deliberately were prepared to disrupt the process where it was not in their favor. Now the question is, at the point at which all of this were going on, was the beavers capturing those that have been accredited, those that have voted, so as to secure the results in the event of any destruction of the process by political talks? So these are the number of questions that we should ask. Don't forget that preparing for an election is not the conduct of an election.
Absolutely.
For example, Professor Omonigo is here. She was not involved in the preparations for the election, but she was involved in the conduct of the election. And so her own experiences will be different from those who prepared for the election, in which case, whatever happens in any polling center, particularly the units that have been identified, will be assessed in relation to the fairness of the election, how free it was conducted, whether it was also credible. What makes election credible? It is only when results are transparent. You see clearly that there is no evidence of cheating in the process. It's okay, it is transparent. Even transparency beyond voting is how the results have also been collated and transmitted. There are cases, for example, where in some units, they could not even transmit results. So what was responsible for that particular problem in the conduct of the election? So these are issues that relates to one's faith in the electoral process. If you have no faith in the process, tendency is there for you to go and disrupt the process. And so, okay, whatever happens, I may not get it, then I may not get it. We're both losers. So that is the problem we're having in Nigeria as of today.
Thank you very much, erudite Professor Benson Osadolo. Professor Stella Omonigo, you were the returning officer at Igwebme. Look, share with us, what was the exercise like, generally speaking, in Igwebme?
Okay, before I will talk about Igwebme, I would also like to put in a word concerning the preparedness of INEC. Because the whole process of getting ready for the elections was a bit, I wouldn't use the word faulty, but it was a bit shaky, let me use that word, from the training of the ad hoc staff, especially the collation officers, which I think was a major part of the preparation for the success of this election. The training did not take place until on Thursday, just Thursday last week, 2 days before
the election.
The election. And we spent almost 3 hours just getting the attendance. So at the end, it was a kind of crash program, especially for first-timers who had never been collation officers. So some of us had to even go out of our way to be, educating colleagues about how to go about, not INEC now doing it for us. And then the second one is the posting of collation officers to various parts of Edo State did not take place until 11 o'clock.
11 a.m. or 11 p.m.?
11 a.m.
Okay.
A few minutes after 11, even into 12 o'clock on Saturday, when they were all supposed to be at their various stations. And then at the end, there were no sufficient vehicles to convey people to their various parts, their destinations. It was really, it was not nice. It wasn't a good experience, as some of us had to bring out our personal vehicles just because of this patriotism. We want everything to move on well for Nigeria. We want everything to go on well. Some persons had to sacrifice their fuel to drive to their various, points of assignment. And then, talking about security, it was very shocking. This is the first time I've been involved in electoral, this INEC job as ad hoc staff for a long time, for about 4 or 5, consecutive elections. But this time around, I saw very low presence of security at, security covering ad hoc staff, protecting ad hoc staff from INEC offices or from their rack centers to, various places, polling centers and collation centers. I also found that there was low security at the collation centers. Now, talking about Igwebme, I would like to commend the Igwebme people for their peaceful conduct of the past elections. I can give that credit to them. They were so peaceful, everywhere was peaceful. And if not that the people of Igwebme decided to be very peaceful and cooperative with us, I'm sure we'll have run into so many major problems as far as security was concerned. But you know, I think they already had a mindset and they had, you know, this cooperation within them, so we didn't have problems. Even when before the collation, you know, commenced, and I was like, I know, even at the INEC office at Igweben, when we arrived, there was not even a single security personnel, no single security agents in that place. Meanwhile, there were sensitive materials there. We had result sheets, original result sheets at the INEC office and everything. Not even a single police was present at the INEC office at Igweben when we arrived. And of course, when materials were being shared, you know, we were exposed, and the INEC office was inside the bush. We were all alone, sharing sensitive materials. So that's why I said that if not that Igweben people, peace-loving people, we won't be here talking. Maybe they would have surrounded us or something. And then by the time we had to go to our various, because from there we now posted people to their ward collation centers, they went alone without security. Some of them traveled as far as 2 hours from the INEC office to the ward collation center without security. I tell you, I think INEC exposed the ad hoc staff to danger. But luckily for us, no danger came our way in the place where we worked. Now, coming back to the collation of the results, I was a bit worried that the beavers, you know, that were supposed to transmit results immediately, was accepting only senatorial results. At the time, they said that it was a network problem, that everybody in the country was using the beavers, the same server, to transmit results. And the question I asked was that, did they not envisage this before?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, they should have, the ICT members or the ICT team should have, you know, envisaged this kind of problem. You know that you are using only one server. Maybe should have decentralized it. And then secondly, there was provision to transmit offline. Now, when we tried transmitting offline, how come the beavers was only accepting senatorial results and not accepting presidential results? That is for INEC to answer.
Absolutely.
So, you know, what I just feel about this whole thing is INEC has also to be very careful, because so many Nigerians had hope and trust in them. So it will be very unfortunate if they don't transmit the results, the true results of polling centers and polling units, because that story of our vote doesn't count will now come back. And like our dear Reverend said here, you know, a while ago, that so many people came out. The turnout this year was massive because people had faith, people had hope that their votes will count. Let us allow Nigerians' votes to count. Having said that, I would also like to talk about the conduct of some INEC officials. I tell you, I don't know whether they worked with first-timers, but so many of them were rude and arrogant. I would like to specifically talk about the way they were talking to these ad hoc staff. I had to intervene on 2 occasions. They weren't rude to me per se, but I saw them misbehaving, that to the extent that some collation officers had to drop their materials and said, look, instead of you to insult me because I brought myself this low to work, I will not work again. Please take your work, take your money. I'd rather go back to Benin. That was very sad. In fact, I had to caution one of them yesterday who was talking so rudely to the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the University of Benin.
Oh my God.
So rudely, pointing hand at him, saying that she told him to help her tap current from the light. The Deputy Vice Chancellor to climb a table at Ubiaja to help her tap electricity to power her laptop. Does it make sense? You see, some of these things, it will discourage credible people
to participate in the conduct
in future.
Of
I was asking myself, is it that this is a kind of plan to discourage, you know, credible Nigerians from working for this kind of process so that they could bring in all sorts of persons in the future? I don't know. It is for INEC to answer. But the major point is that there were so many itches on the part of INEC that should should be closely looked into to, you know, to forestall further or future occurrences. And then the security, let me tell you, an election is free, is said to be free, fair and transparent if there are enough security measures on ground to protect the lives, to protect the people working, the agents working, and also to protect the results that are being transmitted from various polling centers and collation centers, which I think did not. Now, referring to the other parts of Edo State and to the other parts of the country, we saw so many troubling and disturbing videos. I saw a video where a police vehicle, a police van, was the one carrying the ballot box and then threw the ballot box into a gutter. You know, I saw it this morning. It's not that they told me. You know, Nigerians, thank God for technology and thank God for telephones. Nigerians are now videoing, you know, to see, and they were showing this video. These videos are online on social media. A police vehicle was the one carrying the ballot box, you know, and they were shouting. If I saw the youth corpers running away, and then they were shouting that police officers came to snatch. They were the ones who snatched the ballot box. And truly, after some time, they threw it into the gutter, and people started, you know, seeing so many ballot papers, you know, where people printed a particular
political party.
That is one. I also saw another video where, in the presence of policemen, somebody was shouting and threatening people. If you know you are not going to vote for our party, mention the name of the party, which I wouldn't want to talk about here. You know, say if you don't want to vote for this party, you better go home. You better go home. In the presence of a policeman. Meanwhile, President Buhari promised Nigerians that this election was going to be very free and fair. So what is the definition of being free and fair? When people were being threatened at the polling units, that if they would not vote for a particular party, they should go back home. What about the case of Lasso?
Exactly.
The Lasso polling center, where thousands of people, thousands, when I mean thousands, hundreds of thousands registered, and then the gate was locked against them. They said they passed through the back gate and the gate was still locked. They told them that if they were not ready to vote for a particular party, they should go back. What has INEC? No statement has been made about that Lasso center. Yeah. And what about the security agents? We were told that soldiers were deployed to Lagos, you know, to forestall these things. But that day, in their presence, these people were threatening Nigerians. What happened? Now, let me give another one. Somewhere in Esako, yesterday, the DPO was the one who heard one of our colleagues. I will mention his name so that you can invite him to tell us, you know, his experience. The DPO in charge of the place held Professor Victor Igbineweka to ransom that if he didn't change results, he was not going to live there alive.
Professor Stella, but this is very, very strong allegations that we cannot
independently
verify
I'm mentioning
here.
His name.
Yes, I know.
So that you could invite him, let him tell us his experience.
Okay.
My point is this, that some policemen, you know, some security agents who are supposed to protect electoral officers, who are supposed to protect ad-hoc staff, who are supposed to protect, and not, you know, they warned us about being, you know, this partisanship in these elections. And then, as a security agent, you are supposed to work for the interest of Nigeria and not for the interest of any individual. Now, it took the intervention of the vice chancellor, you know, to make some calls and send soldiers to the rescue of this our colleague. Maybe he wouldn't be alive today. Thank God he's alive to tell his own story. I will not tell the story for him. Now, lastly, I want to concerning security. You know, talking about these funny, in quotes, security, you know, outfits. I had an experience. Immediately after the elections at Igweben local government, we were to go to Ubiaja to submit results, and then come to Benin for the presidential results. And then when we came out around 3 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., I just saw the EO. The policeman was shouting at the EO, "Get into the vehicle, let's go, let's go, let's go." The EO, without asking for the returning officer who was carrying the result, I don't know where he was going to, entered the car and they were driving off without me. without the results. And the collation officers were shouting and said, please don't shout. Let's go back into the... So they left us. They wanted to abandon all of us in that bush where we collated results. So I didn't say anything. Me, I didn't have power to shout. I went back inside the collation center and sat down in the dark. No police officer, nothing. I think it was when the EO realized that what was he going to show at Ubiaja without the returning officer, that he came back. But, you know, he was so ashamed of himself that he couldn't come to meet me, because I just told him that provide a means for these people to leave this bush. They told us that you are supposed to take care of all the collation officers. Now you are leaving them in the bush, no security, nobody with them. The Gweben people had left. So the people were just there. I said it wasn't going to happen. That I was in charge of them. The vice chancellor put them under my care. So they should at least live there safely. It was then he realized that he didn't do well. And it was then he started making calls for a vehicle. He said he didn't make arrangement for them to live there. That INEC did not mobilize him to take care of them at the end of the election. And don't forget that these people went with the mind that INEC was going to pay them. Some of them did not go with transport fare, nothing. And then you were going to abandon them in the bush.
So how would they leave them?
Yes. You know, but thank God for that wisdom we had, that we had to stay back with the results. And it was then he came back. So the question I was asking the DP was that, please, sir, who are you supposed to protect? Were you supposed to protect the EO who did not have results on him? Or you're supposed to protect the results? In fact, not protecting the returning officer. But protecting the results. But you know, for whatever reason, I don't know the kind of arrangement they had, he was so concerned about the EO and not about the results. These are some of the issues that should be looked into.
Okay, Reverend, I'd like you to take it a notch higher. The security lapses that were prevalent, evident in this election across the states of the Federation. I know that over the years, participating in an election, we're always here in the studio, but before you get to the studio, is usually a Herculean task, because you find security presence at strategic locations, areas where there have been cases of ballot box snatching. You want to wonder, what were the security agents doing to forestall things like that? Was it that they were not anticipated, like is always the case, Rev?
Yeah, thank you very much. I remember the story of David and the husband of Bathsheba. When David found out that the woman had become pregnant, and he didn't want it to be him, so he called the man home and said, while the war was going on, come and spend some time with your wife. And he says, my colleagues at war, is woman my problem? I quote and unquote. You know what David did? When David saw that the man could not be compromised, he sent message to Abishai in the field. He said, when that guy gets to the thick of battle, withdraw from him. Withdraw from him. Expose him. Compromise him so that he can be killed. For me, that looks like what happened in the whole of this scenario. It just looks like there was a deliberate attempt to withdraw police officers for this election. Edo State Police Command has about between 8,000 to 10,000 police officers. I traveled from Edo State to Ekpoma for this election. From Ekpoma, I went to Uromi. I only saw soldiers on the road. 3 blockades on the road. I didn't see any police officers. To be honest with you, in this particular election, I didn't see any mobile police officers, except for the police officers and some traffic wardens who were at the polling unit. I don't even know what happened to Federal Road Safety Commission. We used to see Federal Road Safety Commission. You will even see customs. All the paramilitary will be there doing work with the military. I didn't see any presence. You know what I saw? I saw voters who conscripted themselves into security people, both to defend the INEC ad hoc staff and to defend people who were coming to their polling unit. We saw what happened, was it around the Yaro axis, where they managed a police officer, tried to get the guy away. And people were the ones who rounded up the guy to say, you know what, this guy isn't going to go anywhere. So, and I know that in every election, in every state, there is a commissioner of police for the election. I don't know if there was a commissioner of police for this election, but the Edo people especially, because we're in Edo State, appear to have been exposed. And again, I will give, because if you look at the videos that you see on social media, you saw the proactivity of the army. You didn't see the proactivity of the police officers. All the guys who were apprehended, it was the army that was doing that. And in fairness, is that in an ideal democratic setting, the army has no role to play in the defense of our voters and in the protection of the INEC materials and the INEC official. It is squarely the responsibility and the prerogative of the Nigerian police. But in this election, they were altogether absent. So we need to be able to ask the Commissioner of Police in Edo State. We need to be able to ask the Commissioner of Police for this election, because before now you will hear that 8,000 personnel were deployed to Edo State. I didn't hear much of that in this particular election. I'm hoping that it's not a deliberate attempt to expose the people and to make them vulnerable to people who want to change, the processes. Because in certain areas, people, had a field day. I mean, I saw one of your own on television who was using a personal gadget to say, look at what happened in Oredo. And Oredo, for me, is a funny area for me. The reason is because the governor of the state is from Oredo. Yeah. And many allegations of ballot box snatching and destruction of the voting process pointed to a particular political party who felt that they were losing steam as far as this electoral process was concerned. But you see, human beings naturally, that's why the Bible says the heart of man is exceeding wicked. So human beings naturally want to subvert process. Yeah. Even in America, people want to subvert processes. What deters them is the fact that you have a functional police that ensures that what they want to do, they don't carry it out. And like Prof said, there must also be consequences. Because we saw police officers who were defending a political party. I will tell you what will happen. Supposing that political party at the end of the day emerges, that political officer will either be commissioner of police or be DPO. He will be rewarded for that dastard act. He will be rewarded for it.
At the detriment of the collectivity of Nigerians. Yes.
As far as they were concerned, the guy fought for them. Look at, is that not what happened to Commissioner of Police Mba in the time of Amechi? The Commissioner of Police came and said he had tamed the unruly tiger in Rivers State, referring to the governor of the governor of Rivers State, and they were preparing the guy perhaps to emerge as IG of police. Unfortunately for him, the so-called unruly tiger, his party at that time won the election, and they conscripted him to police college to be singing police hymns, since he knows how to sing against it. But that's what happens, in an election. So I am deeply worried. I mean, look at some of the experiences that Prof said. Look at how they expose her. Do you understand? A mother, a white. I mean, so what could she have done? The luck that she had is the fact that there was a kind of understanding across Edo Central. Everybody came together. They thought that the APC people thought they did not have an enemy. PDP thought that the enemy of APC was also now their enemy. Labour Party also thought that the person who was supposed to be their friend had also become their enemy. So all these three guys now identified a common enemy and said, you know what, we must deal with that common enemy. So there was this agreement that, for presidency we'll go this direction. Way. For other positions, we'll go this direction. But the both directions were against that common enemy. And the results that are coming out
shows that.
Look at Oredo. The House of Rep guy has been declared.
All right.
You would ask yourself in Oredo, where you had such serious political gladiators.
Yeah. Reverend Matu, we'll get to that point much later. But let me get Prof to talk a bit about some of these security lapses that were visible in this election, would you see them as deliberate against the background of the feedback that we're getting? Yeah.
For every election, there are 3 security issues involved. Number 1 is the election security itself. To identify the role of security in the process. The second one is election security management. It's wanting to identify, for example, the security issues that will be addressed during the election. The second one is how to manage those issues you have identified. The third aspect has to do precisely with professional conduct of security agencies. Now, looking at these 3 issues, let's go back to the evidence of a witness of the election, because having been involved in the conduct of the election, she was definitely a witness. And also, the information reaching her and most other people from the media to see what we describe today as the unprofessional conduct of security agencies. How do we relate all of this? Personally, I was woefully disappointed when I saw the video from Lagos, boldly Lagos State University, and you saw crowd outside, denied, not just ordinary crowd, electorate, people anxious to go and vote, denied access to the polling center simply because of ethnic identity or a kind of electoral behavior that they feel will not be in their interest. Now, who was supposed to take responsibility for ensuring the security of the electorate at that point at Lagos State University? If there was a show, like I said, election security, if there was a show of force, you know, which I saw from Ojota to Lagos Island to Etiosa local government to Badagry area or Ojo area of Lagos, there was a show of force. Now look, this election is going to be like this. On the day of election, what happened? Nothing of such seems to appear for the electorate to believe that yes, they are protected by security agencies or they are safe from hoodlums and thugs that may want to unleash violence on them. What this suggests to us is this. If we want to take elections serious in this country, we must use this particular election of Saturday, 25th of February, to investigate the behavior or misbehavior of security agencies. For example, when I left home, my thinking was, let me drive. I said, no, I won't drive. I won't drive to my police center because the police had said from 12 a.m. to 6 p.m. no vehicular movement, except those on emergency or annex staff. Guess what? I walked from my location in around BDP area to Usuru Secondary School. I saw hundreds of vehicles on the road. At first, I was blaming myself.
Why did I drive?
When I got to the road, some persons who saw me identified me. I said, Prof, so I walk in. I said, yes, so I'm obeying the law. I said, no, I have made up my mind to obey the law. So I'm going to walk down and walk back. I made up my mind about that. They offered me right to their vehicle. I just thanked them, expressed my appreciation. I said, but let me just walk. Then jokingly, I said, you know, at my age now, I should have time to walk so that I can keep fit. But what is disappointing about it all is that the same police that said no vehicular movement, they could not check vehicular movement on that day. It was very disappointing. When I go to the police center, sir, the vehicles there were more than the electorate in Beaufort. But more disturbing in all of this, and I think the Nigerian police or security agencies should begin to think of the future of this country. More disturbing, sir. We have vehicles, unregistered vehicles that were on road. I was not told, I saw them. Unregistered, that is vehicles, no plate numbers. Vehicles from, what do you call it now? From car dealers or sales point and so on and so forth. They were on the road. I don't want to mention anyone. See, they were on the road. Some were even parked. The police at a particular unit by Usulu Secondary School there, where they parked that unregistered vehicle, the police was there. You couldn't question why an unregistered vehicle should be there. Supposing that vehicle was used
to commit an electoral offense.
To commit an electoral offense, how would you track that vehicle? Not registered. So these are security issues. Then, of course, the security personnel. We have a kind of poor orientation in this country. And the poor orientation of this country is what is affecting our confidence in the security forces or agencies in this country. The security believe that they exist not in the interest of the citizens, but in the interest of government. The security believe, the police believe, the army believe, civil defense believe that they are there in the interest of government. So for the citizens, that's not their business. It's not so. We must begin to redefine the role of the police force in a society. Today, we have added the civil defense corps, there. And then we have all kinds of agencies that are involved in the safety and security of the citizens. But I bet you, sir, their interest about citizens is just 5% during an election. 95% loyalty is to those in government or the party in government. And they have demonstrated it often and often. And it's very sad. Clearly, I think our university systems now should begin to take interest in doing critical research on elections. Critical research. There are contemporary issues that should be investigated and reported. I know that NGOs are involved in this. There are a lot of NGOs involved who are writing reports. I read some of the reports yesterday online about some NGOs who have expressed their woeful disappointments with security agencies. There are. One was even questioning why there was a particular video that I saw where they said the security agencies with annex staff went into a classroom. They were completing ballot papers where the voters were in queue outside. Reverend, you saw it?
Yes, I did.
They were outside.
Yes.
I mean, what kind of nonsense is that? A democracy that is 24 years old. Fourth Republic is 24 years old. And then we have not learned any lesson in 2 decades. That is something serious. Why should a security staff, aid annex staff, and their collaborators from which political party they may be, to begin to tamper? When the people saw it, they went wide. Said, okay, this is what we have been doing. We will deal with you.
That's the video you saw online.
Yes.
And some of those videos, we really can't independently verify them to authenticate the source of such videos.
No, you see,
if it's even a skit or something.
One thing about the media age we are, the digital age we are now,
yes,
is that if you use any device like your Android phone to record an incident, the date appears there.
Absolutely.
If you take a picture, anywhere you take a picture, the location, like Benin City appears, the date also appears, and the time appears. That is the digital age that we are in today. So those videos that you have seen online, they are verifiable.
Okay.
As evidence of what I may call today the treasury. People who are treasures, about a particular system and how it should work. Systems work abroad because of the role of law enforcement agencies to create law and order, to ensure that everyone, in quote, obeys the law. But here, those who are supposed to ensure that the law is obeyed, they are the ones breaking the law. So how do you explain this kind of attitude of our people? Is it inducement by some persons? Maybe it was okay, this is what we offer you if you do this for us. Or they are under the influence of an authority, an order. Take the order. This is what Oga has said we must do. So you must deliver when it comes to your own area. These are problems that we need to identify in this country. You see, there are times, Professor Monigo has said something about how elections were conducted in the area that she had access to. After this election, 2-3 weeks after, everybody keeps quiet. Everybody forgets about it. It's not so XWL. You follow up, you investigate, write reports. The media should be asking questions continuously. What is the outcome of this? What has happened to this? Rather, there will be threat to the media house. Please, suppress this story, suppress this news, suppress this information. If you dare broadcast or publish it, the Nigerian Communication Whatever Commission will put their hammer on you. And so the press is gagged. And so everybody is afraid because they don't want the NCC to slam the media with any fine of millions. They have yet to increase the pay for their staff. They are looking for millions to go and pay fine. How will that happen? It's unfortunate.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prof. Professor Stella Monigo, I know that over the years, we've had conversations on the use of security agents in an election. And in time past, they were heavily criticized that the heavy presence of security agents tends to militarize the electoral process. In some cases, it scares off electorates coming out. And people are of the opinion that we need to reduce the heavy presence of security agents in an election. Isn't that what played out in this election?
No, I think what people were referring to then was the professionalism of these security agents.
That's right.
Not necessarily because of the numbers. People were saying that most times these people tend to intimidate the electorates instead of, ensuring the process moving on smoothly. They harass the electorate and, and so on. So I don't think it was a case of the number that people were complaining about. It was a case of intimidation by these security agents. And taking it up from all we have been saying, I think this whole thing boils down to professionalism and then conscience and loyalty. And when we're talking about loyalty, to whom are they supposed to be loyal to? Okay. Are they supposed to be loyal to their boss? Are they supposed to be loyal to Nigerians, or they're supposed to be loyal to their calling? Because for every one of us, we have a calling, and they decided to go into this profession as security agents. And I know that we usually take oaths, of office and everything. So who are they supposed to protect? That is the scenario we are facing in this case now. And whom are they supposed to be loyal to? Now let me tell you, in this case, if they had been loyal to Nigeria and the Nigerian Constitution, some of the things that were done that we saw playing out at various polling centers and at various, even in various videos, are unconstitutional, are against our constitution. And when you go against the constitution, what is the sanction for it? I see it this way. Until people are being sanctioned for their shortcomings, until people are being sanctioned for their misconduct, corruption and all these things, all these malpractices, we continually will be seen in the political and in the electoral process in Nigeria. Just like Professor Sadolo earlier mentioned, now some of these cases that we have seen on video, let's assume that until verified, you cannot actually establish them. What measures have been put in place? What measures will be put in place to investigate these videos? Because These videos captured faces of people.
That's right.
These videos captured locations. So what are security agents, if genuine, what are they doing genuinely to investigate, you know, these videos and to bring to book those people who were involved in electoral malpractices? Then secondly, how can you now talk about the credibility of the electoral process in a particular location where you had these, you know, cases of violence, malpractices and everything, while some were still collecting results had been declared. As a matter of fact, the Ekiti result that was declared yesterday, I don't know whether you are aware, Nigerians are now wise, and most of them are into technology as well. Immediately people raised an alarm that the result that was uploaded on the INEC, you know, we all have access to this INEC result platform. And then the result was showing 20th of February, 11:20 p.m. So how did it get to that? You know, how? Technology does not...
It's digital. It's digital.
The day you upload something will reflect and the time.
Of course.
So is it that yesterday was backdated on INEC platforms? You see, like we said, the media is being gassed in Nigeria. There's no freedom, there's no much freedom of the press and expression as we used to have. But excuse me on this. This is something that shouldn't be swept under the carpet. It has come out like this. The next thing we hear is that it has been taken down and it has been corrected to 26. But Nigerians saw it. We are not fools. And people were saying it. While election results were still being collated at Ekiti, results were being declared. So where did they get the results being declared? That is one.
The result, we saw the returning officer for Ekiti make those presentations yesterday.
You see, that's what I'm saying.
We saw him
where did they get them from? You understand? Because in some places, in some local government, they were still collecting. In some, they were still collecting
the
results.
INEC chairman continuously was saying that please ensure that whatever presentation you're going to make here tallies with what we already have.
You see,
yes.
Mr. Sonny Duke, let me tell you something about this whole process. It is, you can say something on air for people to see. There might be, I'm not saying it, there might be, I'm using the word might, there might have been a prearranged something, we don't know. But Nigerians are just worried that after all efforts made, the results that are being projected are not really the true reflection of what happened at their various polling centers. I'll give you another experience I had, at least this is me, and I had the experience myself. After preparing my result for my local government, no mutilation, I balanced my results, make sure everything was okay. We proceeded to go to the submission center at Ubiaja. And then this particular lady, Dirateg, was so impatient. I don't know why. I don't know, for whatever reason.
Who is the lady? Or who was the lady?
Dirateg, the person in charge of the ICT lady.
Okay.
You know, they call them Rateg. They check online. I mean, on Excel sheets on the computer, if your result is balanced or not, if there was overvoting. And you know, I kept on telling her, come and take my result. Sit down, you sit down, let's take my result. The person in charge was ready for her. You know, the way she was a bit funny, the way she was acting funny. The next thing, she just took my result sheet and said, hope there was no overvoting. Hope there was no overvoting. I said, please, don't tell me, just sit down and let's do this. Then I started calling, you know, the results for her, the figures. And the next I said, I told you there was overvoting. I said, excuse me, your result is not balanced. There's overvoting by 2 or something. I said, calm down, my dear. Calm down. I've been in this job for a while. You calm down and let's go through it together. So the university boss was actually there also. You know, we all checked. We were all laughing because we had checked before. So we all checked and did it. And it was balanced. So I turned to her. Why did you say it wasn't balanced before?
Why did you say there was overvoting? Well, you hadn't even checked.
Yes, you had not seen my result. Why? Is it a prearranged something? You know, I said, you people are making us scared. In fact, the next professor who presented after me was like, you did not even check. Before checking, you had concluded that there was overvoting in Igweben. He said, let me take you. Then she just lost her temper and started shouting and everything. And the policeman there, you know, approached her like, what is wrong with you? This thing happened in our presence. You had not seen the result. You are saying that there was overvoting, speculating already. My point is this. There are some, I think, I may be proven wrong. I think that there are some, there's a script being played out.
We can't
because of
that,
what is going
Prof,
on
yes.
in, no, hold on, because of
Yes.
what is going on. And then coming back to this security, let me tell you, the credibility and the success of these elections depend mostly on security agents. It's somewhere in the north where we saw a child of less than 5, or let's say 6, that a policeman came out openly on
defending.
national television saying that it could be a genetic, he could not
Deformity.
recognize. Yes. Oh,
but who should have a larger share of the blame? The man who registered such a child to come and vote,
Yes.
or the one who allowed the child to vote? In both cases, it's the same person who registered the child,
You see?
that allowed the child to vote.
Well, that is an aside.
Yeah.
And like I said before, until people are being sanctioned for some of these malpractices,
Yeah.
corruption and misconduct will continue in the system. But because people feel that they can do anything and get away with it, they keep doing it. Now, like you said, somebody registered this child. People were there when this child was being registered. Somebody was involved in it. We saw, even when you see a face of a child in passport photograph, you'll be able to know. Now, you're on the INEC server. You want to tell me that no INEC staff among their ICT guys, they did not see any underage looking face, because they said maybe a genetic malfunction. It is quite laughable. And you know, we are also making ourselves laughable before and being ridiculed before the international, arena, community. So I think that people should be brought to book. Now that is one. Somebody committed that misconduct at first. Now on the day of the election, as people are on the queue, you see a child. It is so obvious that this is a child. As a security agent, you are supposed to be the one to say, where is your mother? When were you born and everything? In fact, from the way the child was talking, even bringing out 1,000 naira note from, you know that this is just a child who was asked to do something. And as an obedient child who doesn't know his left from his right, he will do whatever he was asked to do. My point is this: if Nigerians are ready to defend democracy, I think it is doable. The problem we are having is that our security in one way or the other has been compromised. That when they see A, they don't recognize it as A any longer, but are speculating that A may be Z. And it's quite unfortunate.
Okay, thank you very much. If you just join us, you're still on to the Nigerian Decide Live studio of Independent Television, where we are looking at how the 2023 election fared so far, particularly the presidential and National Assembly election. And in just about 2 hours, we hope the National Collation Center of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, will be opened and more results will come in. But as we speak today for the presidential election, we only have the result for Ekiti State, where the APC won that with over 200,000 votes. PDP came second, and of course, Labour Party came third, and NPP came fourth. I mean, the results, they are everywhere for you to see. But we're still expecting results as declared by INEC for the National Assembly elections in Edo State and elsewhere. As soon as we have access to them, we'll bring them to you in the course of this program. Another major thing that came forth in this election, we actually saw officials of Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and ICPC moving from one polling unit to another polling unit. And in some cases, arrests were made. Before the election, one postal child had been arrested with over close to $500,000 in Rivers State. And they also had a report of EFCC intercepting over 30 million naira new naira notes in this election. Let me get your take on this, Reverend Low Martins.
I saw a video, and those guys, Christmas came early for them. And I somehow was wishing that that's why I was voting. Yeah, because there was this guy that was caught with a nylon bag, and then because they knew that he wanted to share money, they swooped on him. Unfortunately, because before he got to his beneficiaries, they had torn the nylon bag into pieces. And the money was all over the ground. But not before.
People had a
That's
field
why I
day.
say that Christmas came early for them. When Christmas comes for you in February.